2 weeks later, the UES Frontier dropped out of hyperspace at the coordinates where the distress signal was coming from. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, looking at the main screen with his mouth open. "My God," whispered Lisa Park. From her communications station, in front of them floated dozens of massive ships. Each one was bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were long and dark, with strange curves and angles that looked nothing like human designs. Some had lights flickering along their sides. Others were completely dark. Sensors are picking up 43 separate vessels, reported Ryan Bell. The largest ones are over 3 kilometers long. They appear to be generation ships, built for very long journeys through space. Jake could see that many of the ships were damaged. Hull plates were missing. Some had huge gashes in their sides. A few were connected to others by cables and tubes, like they were sharing power or air. "Life signs?" Jake asked. Amy Foster worked at her science station. "Yes, sir. I am reading biological activity on most of the ships. The computer estimates somewhere between 40 and 60,000 life forms total." 60,000, Jake repeated quietly. It was hard to imagine that many people living on those old, damaged ships. "Captain," Lisa said, "the distress signal is much stronger now. And I am picking up other transmissions, internal communications between the ships. The computer is trying to translate them." Ryan studied the sensor readings. "Some of these ships are in bad shape. I am seeing power failures, atmosphere leaks, and what looks like engine problems. A few of the ships appear to be dead in space." Jake walked closer to the main screen. Each ship represented thousands of lives, families who had been traveling through space for who knows how long, and from the look of things, they were running out of time. "Lisa, open a channel. Broadcast on all frequencies. Let them know we are here to help." Lisa worked at her controls for several minutes. "Channel open, Captain. Broadcasting your message now." Jake took a deep breath. These were probably going to be the most important words any human had ever spoken. "Unknown vessels. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth ship UES Frontier. We received your distress signal and have come to offer assistance. Please respond on any frequency you can use." They waited. The minutes felt like hours. Jake wondered if the aliens could understand them, or if their translation systems were working, or if anyone was even alive to hear the message. Then Lisa's station lit up with incoming signals. "Multiple responses, Captain. The computer is working on translation now." The main screen flickered and changed. A face appeared. It was clearly not human, but it was also clearly intelligent and emotional. The being had large, dark eyes and pale skin. Its features were longer and thinner than a human's, but there was something familiar about the expression of hope and surprise. "Human vessel," the alien said through the translation system. "I am Elder Thane Viridian of the Kalari fleet. For 200 cycles we have sent our voices into the darkness. Many species have heard us, but all have passed by. You are the first to stop and offer help." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. 200 years. These people had been calling for help for 200 years. "Elder Viridian," Jake replied, "we are glad we found you. Can you tell us what kind of help you need?" The alien's large eyes seemed to fill with something that might have been tears. "Our ships are dying, Captain Morrison. Our power systems fail one by one. Our population grows smaller each cycle. We are the last of our kind, fleeing from a disaster that destroyed our home world long ago." Amy Foster was studying her sensors carefully. "Captain, I am reading critical system failures on at least 15 of their ships. Power plants that are shutting down, life support systems that are not working right, and structural damage that looks very dangerous." Ryan pulled up technical displays. "Their technology is different from ours, but I can see the problems. Some of these ships will not last more than a few months without major repairs." Elder Viridian continued speaking. Our star died before its time. A cosmic accident that we could not prevent or escape fast enough. We saved what we could and fled into space. That was 200 of your years ago. Where were you trying to go? Jake asked. Anywhere that would have us, but space is vast and resources are limited. Our ships were built for a journey of decades, not centuries. We have been surviving on hope and determination, but both are running low. Jake looked around at his crew. Lisa was working to establish communication with other Kalari ships. Ryan was analyzing their technology. Amy was studying the biological readings. Pete Collins had come up from engineering and was looking at the structural scans of the alien vessels. Elder Viridian, Jake said, we want to help, but I need to understand your situation better. Can you send us technical information about your ships and systems? Of course, the alien replied. But I must warn you, we have tried to repair our fleet for many cycles. We have salvaged parts from the dead ships to keep the others running. We have rationed food and power and hope. But we are reaching the end of what is possible. Over the next several hours, information flowed between the two fleets. The Kalari shared detailed scans of their ships, technical manuals, and medical information about their people. The humans analyzed everything, trying to understand how they could help. The story that emerged was both amazing and heartbreaking. The Kalari had been a peaceful people, living on a world orbiting a stable star. They had developed space travel, and were beginning to explore other planets when their sun started to collapse. It happened faster than anyone thought possible. Solar flares destroyed their satellites. Radiation poisoned their atmosphere. The planet became uninhabitable in just a few years. The Kalari had managed to build a fleet of generation ships and evacuate about 500,000 people. But space travel was harder than they expected. Equipment failed. People got sick. Ships were lost to accidents and mechanical problems. Now, 2 centuries later, fewer than 60,000 Kalari remained alive. They were scattered across 43 ships, most of which were barely functioning. The worst part, Elder Viridian explained during one of their conversations, is that we have found other intelligent species during our journey. We have asked for help, for shelter, for supplies. All have refused. Some were afraid of us. Others simply did not want to be bothered with refugees. Amy made an important discovery while studying the medical data. Captain, the Kalari are suffering from what we call genetic bottlenecking. After 200 years in space with a small population, they are having serious health problems. But our medical technology might be able to help them. Pete Collins was studying the engineering reports. Their fusion reactors are based on the same principles as ours, just built differently. I think we can jury-rig some repairs. Maybe even share some of our power cells to boost their failing systems. Ryan had been plotting courses and checking star maps. Captain, there is something else we should consider. The Kalari have been traveling through space for 2 centuries. They must have mapped thousands of star systems. That knowledge could be incredibly valuable for human exploration. But Jake was thinking about something else. 60,000 people were depending on him to make the right decision. The frontier could not carry that many passengers back to Earth, and even if they could, it would take months to make the trip. Elder Viridian, Jake said during their next communication, we cannot evacuate your entire fleet, but we might be able to help repair your ships and get your systems working again. Would you be willing to work with us? The alien leader was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his words would be remembered by both species for generations to come. Captain Morrison, your people have already given us something we thought we had lost forever. You have given us hope. If you are willing to try, then we are willing to work with you. Together, perhaps we can achieve what neither of us could. Do alone. Jake smiled. It was the beginning of something that would change both civilizations forever. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the shuttle bay of the UES Frontier, watching his crew prepare for the most important mission in human history. They were about to board alien ships and work alongside beings from another world, to prevent a disaster that had been building for 2 centuries. Pete Collins checked his toolkit for the 3rd time. As chief engineer, he would be leading the technical repair teams. "I have studied their schematics for hours," he told Jake. "Their fusion reactors work on the same basic principles as ours. The difference is in the details. Where we use magnetic containment fields, they use gravitational manipulation. It is actually quite clever." Amy Foster was loading medical supplies into her bags. "I have identified the most critical health issues affecting the Kalari population: genetic disorders, radiation exposure, and nutrition deficiencies. Our portable medical units should be able to treat most of these conditions." Lisa Park had set up a mobile communications center. "I have established direct links with 12 of their ships. The translation software is getting better every hour. Soon we should be able to communicate in real time without delays." Ryan Bell was carrying star charts and navigation equipment. "I want to understand their journey better. 200 years of space travel means they have data on stellar phenomena, asteroid fields, and cosmic hazards that we have never encountered." Jake looked at his team with pride. These 4 people were about to attempt something that most experts would say was impossible. They were going to try to save an entire civilization using nothing but human determination and the tools they had on hand. The shuttle carried them across the empty space between the Frontier and the Kalari flagship. As they got closer, Jake could see how massive the alien ship really was. It was over 3 kilometers long and nearly half a kilometer wide. The hull was dark metal covered with strange patterns and symbols. Some sections were clearly newer than others, showing where repairs had been made over the years. Elder Viridian met them at the airlock. Up close, he looked even more alien, but also more human somehow. His people had evolved on a different world, under a different sun, but they had the same needs and fears and hopes as any human. "Welcome aboard the Wandering Hope," he said through the translation device. "This ship has been our home for 8 generations. It has carried us farther from our origin than any of us ever imagined we would travel." The inside of the ship was both familiar and strange. The corridors were taller and narrower than human designs. The lighting was dimmer, but the basic layout made sense. Living quarters, work areas, common spaces where people could gather. What struck Jake most was how crowded everything was. The ship had been designed for maybe 5,000 people, but now it housed nearly 8,000 survivors from other vessels that had failed over the years. Families shared spaces that were meant for individuals. Children played in maintenance corridors because there was no room for proper recreation areas. Pete went straight to the engineering sections with a team of Kalari technicians. The main fusion reactor was housed in a chamber that was 3 stories tall. It hummed and sparked with barely contained energy. "The magnetic bottle is failing," explained Chief Engineer Zara Moonwhisper through the translator. "We have been running it at reduced power for 10 cycles, but the containment field grows weaker each day." Pete studied the massive machine with the eye of someone who had spent 20 years keeping Starship engines running. "The principle is the same as our reactors, but the execution is more elegant. You are using gravitational field manipulation where we would use brute force magnetic containment." He opened his toolkit and pulled out a human power cell. "This is not designed to work with your systems, but engineering is about making things work together that were never meant to be connected." For the next 6 hours, Pete and the Kalari engineers worked to integrate human technology with alien designs. They had to rewire control systems, adapt power couplings, and recalibrate safety systems. It should have been impossible, but somehow it worked. When they powered up the hybrid system, the reactor output increased by 30%. The ship's lights grew brighter. Life support systems that had been struggling began to work normally again. "Incredible," said Zara. "We have been trying to solve this problem for cycles. You found a solution in less than 1 day." Amy Foster was working in the medical bay with Dr. Helix Starweaver, the Kalari's chief physician. The alien medical equipment was advanced but designed for healthy populations, not people who had been living in space for 2 centuries. Your people are suffering from genetic drift, Amy explained as she set up a human DNA sequencer. Small populations in isolated environments develop health problems over time, but human medical techniques can help identify and treat many of these conditions. She showed Dr. Starweaver how human genetic therapy worked. We learned these techniques from our own experience with long-term space travel. The principles should work for your people as well. The first patient was a young Kalari child who had been born with a heart defect that their doctors could not repair. Using a combination of human surgical techniques and Kalari medical technology, Amy and Dr. Starweaver were able to correct the problem in just 2 hours. Your medical knowledge is remarkable, Dr. Starweaver said as they worked. You have solved problems in one day that we have struggled with for years. Lisa Park was in the communications center, working with signal keeper Thane Voidcaller to establish a fleet-wide network. The Kalari ships had been operating independently for decades, with only limited communication between vessels. Your ships need to work together as a unified fleet, Lisa explained. Coordination is the key to efficiency and survival. Using human communication protocols adapted for Kalari technology, they created a network that allowed all 43 ships to share information instantly. Power levels, life support status, emergency alerts, and resource allocation could now be coordinated across the entire fleet. The improvement was immediate. Ships with excess power began sharing with those that were failing. Medical supplies were redistributed based on need rather than accident. Repair crews could be dispatched to the most critical problems first. Ryan Bell was in the navigation center with star mapper Thane Deepvoid, studying the charts and records the Kalari had accumulated during their long journey. Your people have mapped more of this region of space than all human expeditions combined, Ryan said with admiration. This data is incredibly valuable. The Kalari charts showed stellar phenomena, gravitational anomalies, resource-rich systems, and dangerous areas to avoid. But more than that, they showed something humans had been looking for since they first left Earth. There, Thane Deepvoid pointed to a cluster of stars about 50 light-years away. 3 worlds that could support life. We discovered them 15 cycles ago but lacked the resources to settle there. Ryan studied the data carefully. These planets could be exactly what your people need, and what humanity has been searching for as well. As the day continued, human and Kalari workers labored side by side throughout the fleet. They shared tools, knowledge, and techniques. They learned each other's languages and customs. They began to trust each other. But Elder Viridian had one more thing to show Captain Morrison. He led Jake to the ship's memory core, a vast computer system that stored the entire history and culture of the Kalari people. This is all that remains of our civilization, the Elder explained. Art, literature, science, philosophy, music, everything our people created over thousands of years is stored here. Jake looked at the glowing displays with wonder. It is beautiful, and it is safe. Your culture will survive. Elder Viridian nodded, slowly. Yes, but survival is not enough. A culture must grow and change and interact with others, or it becomes just a museum. That is why meeting your people is so important to us. As the human crew prepared to return to their ship, Jake realized that something fundamental had changed. They had come here to rescue the Kalari, but they were all being changed by the experience. Elder Viridian, Jake said before leaving, we have helped each other today, but this is just the beginning. There is much more we can accomplish together. The alien leader smiled, an expression that somehow translated perfectly across species lines. Yes, Captain Morrison. Together we are stronger than either of us could be alone. But neither of them knew that their cooperation was about to be tested by forces that saw any alliance between different species as a threat to their vision of galactic order. Captain Jake Morrison was reviewing repair reports in his ready room when the alarm sounded. The sharp, urgent tone meant only one thing: incoming ships detected. He ran to the bridge where Lisa Park was already working at her communications station. 3 vessels approaching fast from the direction of the galactic core, she reported. Configuration unknown, but they are big and heavily armed. Ryan Bell pulled up the sensor readings on the main screen. They are not responding to our standard greetings. And Captain, they are moving in attack formation. Jake looked out at the Kalari fleet. After 3 days of repairs, many of the refugee ships were working better than they had in years. Families were moving back to ships that had been abandoned. Children were playing in corridors that had proper lighting again. People were beginning to hope. Red alert, Jake ordered. All hands to battle stations. Send a message to Elder Viridian. Tell him we may have trouble coming. The 3 alien ships were massive, each one larger than the Frontier and bristling with weapon systems. As they got closer, Jake could see that their hulls were covered with symbols and markings that looked military. Incoming transmission, Lisa announced. Put it on screen. The face that appeared was not like the gentle features of the Kalari. This being had hard angles, dark eyes, and an expression of cold authority. When it spoke, its voice carried the tone of someone used to being obeyed without question. Human vessel, you are in violation of hegemony space. You are interfering with condemned refugees who have been marked for removal. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Frontier. We are conducting a rescue operation for beings in distress. We have every right to be here under interstellar law. The alien commander laughed, a sound without humor. Human law means nothing here. I am Admiral Kravex of the Hegemony Third Fleet. These refugees have been fleeing through our territory for decades, draining resources and creating instability. We have been tasked with ensuring they do not survive to cause further problems. You are talking about genocide, Jake said, his voice hard. We are talking about necessary order, Kravex replied. The galaxy has no room for weak species that cannot maintain their own worlds. These Kalari fled when they should have died with honor. Now they wander space like parasites, begging for help from anyone who will listen. Behind Jake, Ryan was working frantically at his station. Captain, I am analyzing their weapon systems. Those ships have enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet. Amy Foster had come to the bridge during the red alert. The Kalari ships cannot fight. Most of them do not even have working defensive systems anymore. Jake looked at the tactical display. The hegemony ships were moving to surround the refugee fleet. His single vessel was outnumbered and outgunned. By all logical military analysis, this was a fight he could not win. But Jake Morrison had not come this far to abandon 60,000 innocent people. Admiral Kravex, he said, I have a different perspective on the situation. These people called for help, and help has arrived. We are not leaving. The hegemony commander's expression grew darker. Then you will die alongside them. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human vessel first, then finish the refugees. The 3 enemy ships spread out and began charging their weapons. Energy readings spiked across Jake's tactical displays. Lisa, get me Elder Viridian, Jake ordered. Pete, I need every bit of power we can get to engines and shields. Elder Viridian appeared on a secondary screen. His large eyes were filled with fear and sadness. Captain Morrison, you must flee. Save yourselves. We have lived with this threat for many years. We understand that this day would come eventually. No, Jake said firmly. We do not abandon people who need help. That is not who we are. He turned to his crew. Ryan, I need you to analyze the Kalari star charts. Find me every asteroid, every cosmic phenomenon, every piece of debris in this system. Lisa, patch me through to all the Kalari ships. Amy, get down to sickbay and prepare for casualties. Pete, meet me in engineering in 5 minutes. The next few minutes were chaos. The hegemony ships opened fire with energy weapons that lit up space like miniature suns. The Frontier dodged and weaved between the Kalari vessels, using the larger ships as cover. Jake found Pete in the engine room, working frantically to boost their power output. "Pete, I need miracles. Can any of the Kalari ships fight?" "Most of their weapons were removed years ago to make room for more people," Pete replied. "But Captain, I have been looking at their technical specifications. Some of these ships have industrial equipment that might be adapted for combat." "What kind of equipment?" "Mining lasers, construction tools, cargo manipulators. Not weapons, but in the right hands, they could be dangerous." Jake grabbed the communication system. "Elder Viridian, do any of your ships have mining or construction equipment?" "Yes," the Kalari leader replied. "The Deep Searcher and the Star Forge both carry industrial tools. But Captain, we are not warriors. We have no experience with combat." "You do not need experience," Jake said. "You just need to be willing to fight for your lives." Over the ship's communication system, he addressed the entire human crew. "All hands, this is the captain. We are facing an enemy that wants to commit genocide against innocent refugees. We are outnumbered and outgunned, but we have something they do not have. We have people who are willing to stand up for what is right, no matter the cost." The battle that followed was unlike anything in military history. The Frontier used hit-and-run tactics, striking at the hegemony ships, and then disappearing behind the bulk of the Kalari vessels. The refugee ships, guided by human tactical advice, used their industrial equipment as improvised weapons. Mining lasers designed to cut through asteroids punched holes in hegemony armor. Cargo manipulators grabbed enemy missiles and threw them back at their sources. Construction tools welded hegemony weapon ports shut. Ryan Bell had found something in the Kalari charts that changed everything. "Captain, there is an unstable neutron star remnant about 2 million kilometers from here. If we can lure the hegemony ships close to it, the gravitational effects will interfere with their targeting systems." "How do we get them to follow us?" "There?" Jake asked. "We make ourselves irresistible bait. The Frontier broke cover and charged straight at the largest hegemony ship, firing everything they had." To Admiral Kravex, it must have looked like a desperate suicide attack. "All ships, pursue the human vessel," Kravex ordered. "Do not let them escape." The 3 hegemony ships chased the Frontier toward the neutron star remnant. As they entered the gravitational field, their sensors began to malfunction. Their targeting systems struggled to lock onto the smaller human ship. That was when the Kalari fleet struck. 43 ships, moving in perfect coordination thanks to the communication network Lisa had established, converged on the hegemony. Vessels from all directions. It was not a battle between military forces. It was a community fighting for survival. The Deep Searcher used its mining array to slice through the engine section of one hegemony ship. The Starforge grabbed another vessel with its cargo manipulators and held it steady, while other Kalari ships pounded it with improvised weapons. Admiral Kravex found his flagship surrounded by angry refugees who had decided they were tired of running. "This is impossible," he transmitted. "You are civilians. You cannot fight trained military forces." Elder Viridian's voice came over the communication channel, calm but determined. "We are not just civilians, Admiral. We are people who have survived 200 years in space through cooperation and determination. And now we have allies who have shown us that there are still species in the galaxy who believe in helping others." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 2 of the hegemony ships were disabled and drifting. The third was retreating toward the galactic core, carrying Admiral Kravex and his warnings about human interference. Jake stood on the bridge of the Frontier, looking at the tactical display. His ship was damaged but intact. The Kalari fleet had suffered some casualties but had survived. More importantly, they had won. "Captain," Lisa reported, "incoming transmission from Elder Viridian." The Kalari leader appeared on screen, and for the first time since Jake had met him, the alien was smiling. "Captain Morrison, your people have given us something we thought we had lost forever. You have given us the ability to defend ourselves, But more than that, you have shown us that we are not alone in the galaxy. Jake nodded. Elder Viridian, today we fought as allies. Tomorrow, I hope we can build as partners. But even as he spoke, Jake knew that the hegemony would return. They had made enemies today, and those enemies would not forget or forgive. The galaxy was about to become a much more complicated place. Still, as he looked at the Kalari ships and thought about the 60,000 lives they had saved, Jake felt proud of what they had accomplished. Humanity had found its first alien, allies not through conquest or trade, but through the simple act of answering when someone called for help. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the main conference room of the Wandering Hope, looking at a holographic display that showed the entire region of space around them. 3 days had passed since the battle with the hegemony, and both fleets were still repairing damage and treating casualties. Elder Viridian moved slowly around the table, his long fingers pointing to various star systems on the display. The hegemony controls these sectors, he explained. They will send more ships, larger fleets. We cannot remain here. Ryan Bell nodded grimly. Our long-range sensors are already detecting increased military activity in hegemony space. Admiral, Kravex was not lying when he said they would return. Amy Foster had been working with Kalari doctors to treat the wounded from both fleets. We have 23 injured crew members from the battle. The Kalari have 47 casualties, but most of them will recover fully. Their medical technology is actually more advanced than ours in some areas. Pete Collins was reviewing damage, reports on his tablet. The good news is that both fleets are in better shape now than before the battle. The combat modifications we made to the Kalari ships are actually improving their overall efficiency. Jake studied the star map carefully. The hegemony controlled a vast region of space with hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships. The human and Kalari fleets combined had less than 50 vessels, most of them designed for exploration or refugee transport, not warfare. Elder Viridian, Jake said, you mentioned before that your people had found habitable worlds during your journey. Planets that could support both human and Kalari colonists. The alien leader activated a different section of the holographic display. 3 star systems appeared, each showing multiple planets in green zones around their suns. The Paradise systems, Elder Viridian said. We discovered them 12 cycles ago. 3 separate star systems, each with at least 2 habitable worlds. Rich in resources, stable stellar activity, and far from any major political powers. Ryan studied the data with growing excitement. These systems are beyond the edge of mapped space. Neither the hegemony nor any other known species have claimed them. They could be perfect for joint colonization. Lisa Park had been monitoring communications from Earth during their time in Kalari space. Captain, I have reports from home that might interest you. News of our first contact with aliens has reached Earth. The government is sending a diplomatic fleet, but it will take them 4 months to get here. 4 months, Jake repeated. The hegemony will not wait that long to attack. Again, Elder Viridian was quiet for a long moment, his large eyes focused on something beyond the holographic display. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of 2 centuries of exile. Captain Morrison, my people have been refugees for 8 generations. We have wandered the galaxy, begging for help, searching for a home. Today, for the first time since we fled our dying world, we have the opportunity to choose our own destiny. He looked directly at Jake. Your species answered our call for help when no one else would. You fought beside us against those who would destroy us. You have shared your knowledge, your technology, and your friendship. We would be honored to share the Paradise systems with humanity. Amy made an important discovery while reviewing the medical data from both species. Captain, I need to tell you something significant. The genetic analysis of Kalari DNA shows that our species are compatible for medical purposes. Their immune systems Their healing processes, even their basic biological functions are similar enough to ours that we can share medical treatments. She brought up detailed charts on the display. More than that, the Kalari have genetic adaptations for long-term space travel that humans lack. Extended exposure to cosmic radiation, efficient calcium retention in low gravity, and enhanced vitamin synthesis. If we work together, both species could benefit from shared medical knowledge. Pete had been analyzing the technical cooperation between human and Kalari engineers. The same thing is true for our technology. Their gravitational field manipulation could revolutionize human starship design. Our magnetic containment systems could solve power problems they have struggled with for decades. Ryan was studying star charts from both civilizations. And navigation. The Kalari have mapped more of this region of space than all human expeditions combined. Combined with human stellar cartography techniques, we could create the most accurate maps of the galaxy that any species has ever possessed. Jake felt the weight of the moment. He was making decisions that would affect not just his crew or his ship, but the future relationship between two intelligent species. Elder Viridian, he said, I propose a formal alliance between humanity and the Kalari people. Joint colonization of the Paradise systems, shared technology and medical knowledge. Mutual defense against threats like the hegemony. The Kalari leader was silent for several minutes. Around the table, humans and aliens waited for his response. Captain Morrison, Elder Viridian finally said, such an alliance would change both our species forever. We would no longer be purely Kalari, and you would no longer be purely human. We would become something new together. Yes, Jake agreed. Is that a bad thing? Elder Viridian smiled, an expression that somehow worked perfectly despite the differences between human and alien faces. No, Captain. It is the best thing that could happen to either of us. Over the next week, the two fleets prepared for the journey to the Paradise systems. Human and Kalari engineers worked together to upgrade ship systems. Medical teams shared knowledge and treatment protocols. Navigation specialists combined star charts to plot the safest routes. But the most important work was being done by families, from both species who were learning to know each other as friends and neighbors. Jake found himself in the observation deck of the Wandering Hope, watching human and Kalari children play together. They had created games that worked despite differences in language and biology. They shared food, stories, and laughter. Lisa Park joined him at the viewing window. It is amazing how quickly they adapt, she said. The children do not see aliens. When they look at each other, they just see other children. Amy Foster was working with a mixed group of human and Kalari teenagers who were interested in medicine. The young people are already developing hybrid techniques that neither species would have discovered alone, she reported. They are not limited by the assumption that things have to be done the way they have always been done. Pete Collins and his mixed engineering teams had created new fusion reactor designs that used both human and Kalari principles. The combined technology is more efficient than either species achieved alone, he told Jake. We are already building better starships. Ryan. Bell had made perhaps the most important discovery of all. Captain, the Paradise systems are not just habitable, they are ideal. 3 star systems with a total of 7 worlds suitable for colonization. Enough room for both species to grow and develop for centuries. When the combined fleet finally departed for the Paradise systems, it was no longer a human ship escorting Kalari refugees. It was a joint expedition of 2 species working together toward a common goal. The journey took 6 weeks through uncharted space. Along the way, they encountered cosmic phenomena that neither species had seen before. Working together, human and Kalari scientists made discoveries that advanced both civilizations. When they finally arrived at the first Paradise system, Jake stood on the bridge of the frontier alongside Elder Viridian. On the main screen, 2 beautiful worlds rotated slowly around a stable yellow sun. Home, Elder Viridian said quietly, After 200 years, we have finally found home. Not just for the Kalari, Jake corrected, for all of us. The first colonies were established within months. Human agricultural techniques were combined with Kalari environmental management. Kalari architectural principles were merged with human construction methods. The cities that grew from these collaborations were unlike anything either species had built before. 6 months after the colonization began, Jake received a message from Earth. The diplomatic fleet had finally arrived at the coordinates where they had first encountered the Kalari, only to find empty space. "Captain Morrison," the message said, "Earth Command is ordering you to return immediately with the alien refugees for proper first contact protocols." Jake smiled as he composed his reply. "Earth Command, the refugees are no longer refugees. They are our partners in the greatest adventure in human history. First contact protocols have been completed successfully. We have established the first interstellar alliance in human history." Commander Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of his ship. The UES Harmony looked like any other peaceful vessel in space. Its white hull had no weapons at all. Only sensors and communication devices covered its surface. For 30 years now, Earth had shown the galaxy this same face. They wanted everyone to think humans were weak and afraid of fighting. The lie had worked better than anyone hoped. Jake looked out at the stars through the main window. Tomorrow, he would meet with alien leaders again. He would smile and speak softly. He would tell them how much humans loved peace. He would ask for nothing but the chance to help solve problems between different species. None of the aliens knew the truth about what humans really were. Ambassador Linda Carter stood in her quarters getting ready for another meeting. She put on simple brown clothes that made her look humble. Her voice coach had taught her to speak quietly and gently. Every human diplomat learned the same lessons. Make the aliens think you are harmless. Make them believe you fear violence. Make them see you as useful but never dangerous. Linda had been doing this job for 15 years. She had sat through hundreds of meetings where alien warlords talked about their latest battles. She had listened to species brag about the worlds they had conquered. She had watched entire civilizations get wiped out while pretending to care only about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. But Linda remembered everything. Every boast about military strength, every detail about alien technology, every weakness that slipped out during casual conversation. All of it went into reports that traveled back to Earth through secret channels. The aliens thought she was just a harmless woman who wanted everyone to get along. Captain Roy Henderson sat deep underground in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room around him looked like something from a war movie. Screens covered every wall showing ship positions across human space. Officers moved between workstations managing operations the galaxy knew nothing about. Roy commanded what the aliens thought was Earth's Defense Corps. They imagined it as a small group of security guards protecting merchant ships from pirates. The truth was very different. Roy controlled the largest military force in galactic history. Ships hidden in asteroid belts. Weapons platforms disguised as mining stations, soldiers training in facilities that looked like research centers. For 30 years, humanity had been preparing for war while pretending to hate it. A young officer approached Roy's desk with a data pad. "Sir, the Varkan Empire is moving more ships toward our colonies. Intelligence thinks they might be planning something." Roy nodded and took the report. The Varkans were a species that loved fighting. They had conquered dozens of worlds in the past century. Their warriors were strong, and their ships were fast. Most species in the galaxy feared them, but Roy knew something the Varkans did not. Human scientists had spent 20 years studying Varkan biology. They knew exactly how Varkan hearts worked. They knew what frequencies could disrupt Varkan brain patterns. They knew which chemicals would paralyze Varkan nervous systems. The Varkans thought humans were too weak to be worth conquering. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Dr. Helen Brooks worked in her laboratory analyzing samples from dozens of alien species. Her official job was xenobiology research. She studied how different life forms evolved and adapted to their environments. The galaxy saw her as a brilliant scientist who wanted to understand all living things. Helen did want to understand alien life, but not for the reasons anyone thought. She knew that synthesis collective robots needed specific metals to function properly. She had discovered that eternal beings could not survive without rare minerals from their homeworld. She had learned that crystalline entities became brittle when exposed to certain sound waves. Every discovery went straight to the military planners on Earth. Every weakness became a weapon. Every biological quirk became a tactical advantage. Helen looked at her newest samples under the microscope. A Kethran slaver had visited Earth last month for trade negotiations. During a formal dinner, he had spit into a glass when he thought no one was looking. Helen now knew that Kethran saliva contained enzymes that could be neutralized with simple Earth bacteria. The slaver probably thought the dinner was boring. He had no idea he had just given humanity the key to destroying his entire species if necessary. The Galactic Federation meeting took place on Kepler Station as always. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. The most powerful species sat in the front rows. Military powers like the Varkan Empire and technological giants like the Synthesis Collective commanded respect through strength and fear. Earth's delegation sat in the back with other minor species. Nobody paid much attention to the quiet humans in their simple clothes. Jake stood up when Earth's turn came to address the assembly. He walked slowly to the speaker's platform, looking nervous and uncomfortable. The hall buzzed with quiet conversations as delegates continued their private discussions. Most barely glanced at the human representative. "Honored delegates," Jake began in a voice so soft that people had to stop talking to hear him. "Earth wishes only to serve the cause of peace. We offer our services as neutral mediators for any disputes that might arise between member species." A few delegates nodded politely. Earth's mediation services had proven useful over the years. Humans seemed to have a talent for finding compromises that satisfied everyone. They never took sides and never asked for anything in return except continued trade relationships. War Chief Draxon of the Varkan Empire stood up from his seat in the front row. The massive warrior was covered in scars from 100 battles. His voice boomed across the assembly hall when he spoke. "Tell me, little human," Draxon said with a laugh, "do your people even know how to hold weapons? Or do you solve all your problems by talking them to death?" The hall erupted in laughter. Even species that respected human diplomacy found the joke amusing. Everyone knew that humans had never fought a real war. Their ships carried no weapons. Their colonies had no defenses. Their entire civilization seemed built around avoiding conflict. Jake smiled humbly and spread his hands in a gesture of harmless confusion. "We find violence distasteful, War Chief. We much prefer the art of conversation to the art of war." More laughter filled the hall. Draxon grinned and sat back down, satisfied that he had put the weak human in his place. But Linda Carter, sitting in the Earth delegation, was not laughing. She was recording every word Draxon said. She noted the casual way he dismissed human military capability. She observed which other species joined in the laughter and which remained silent. All of this information would reach Earth's military planners within hours. They would add it to their psychological profiles of potential enemies. They would use it to refine their understanding of how different species viewed humanity. The meeting continued with reports from various member worlds. Trade disputes were discussed and resolved. Scientific discoveries were shared between species. Cultural exchange programs were approved for the coming year. Jake participated in every discussion with enthusiasm. He praised cooperation between species. He suggested compromise solutions to difficult problems. He thanked other delegates for their wisdom and patience with humanity's inexperience in galactic affairs. Nobody suspected that every word spoken in that hall was being analyzed by military intelligence experts back on Earth. When the meeting ended, delegates began filing out of the assembly hall. Many stopped to chat with friends from other worlds. Some arranged private meetings to discuss business deals or political alliances. Jake found himself approached by several minor species who wanted Earth's help with their own problems. A trade dispute between two agricultural worlds, a boundary disagreement over mining rights, a cultural misunderstanding that threatened to disrupt an important alliance. Jake listened carefully to each request. He promised to consider how Earth might help. He suggested preliminary meetings to discuss the issues in detail. But while Jake's mouth spoke words of diplomatic concern, his mind was calculating military implications. The agricultural worlds produced food that could feed armies. The mining dispute involved rare metals used in weapon construction. The Cultural Alliance controlled shipping lanes that could move military supplies across 3 sectors. Every problem was also an opportunity. Every solution would give humanity more influence and better intelligence about potential threats. As the Earth delegation prepared to leave Kepler Station, Jake received an encrypted message on his personal communicator. It was from Roy Henderson. Back on Earth. Watchers report increased Varkan fleet movements near human colonies. Phase 2 approval requested. Jake looked around at the departing alien delegates. Many of them had laughed at Draxon's jokes about human weakness. All of them believed that humanity was exactly what they appeared to be, a peaceful species that preferred trade to conquest and negotiation to violence. They were about to learn how dangerous it could be to underestimate anyone, especially humans who had spent 30 years preparing for the war. Everyone thought they were too afraid to fight. The peaceful mask-humanity war was about to slip, and the galaxy would never be the same again.